Welcome back to the Fantasy Waiver Wire. It's your boy Tubby. Back with me, as always, is Greg, aka Hurts When I Pee.
That's right.
And this is week one, man. Week one. We're back, new season. The champ is here. The champ is here.
But and the runner-up is here.
hey. We still had a really good season, man. But yeah, man, welcome back. Yeah, this is the championship round.
Yeah.
Last year. But I ain't going to dwell on that. New year, new season, new things to look forward to, man. And before we get into it, man, I'm going to tell you, like I told before, man, the youth. And I was watching that game last night.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when we was doing the draft, I said, the youth. You think Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews is going to hold your league down? The youth shall win your league. How about that? The youth shall win your league. Last night, Likely, Worthy. I mean, tight ends I never even heard of from, Rashee Rice, everybody that did anything. Pacheco was young.
Yeah.
Was young last night, man. You even Henry. I was really surprised by that, but we don't got to get into the whole Baltimore offense. It's more of an overall thing. But yeah, man, welcome back. What's going on, Gray? Ready for week one?
I'm ready for this game tonight for sure. I got the Hurts baseball jersey on. I've got my championship stuff up. I am ready for tonight's game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I wish it was at home. I wish it was in Philadelphia. Could you imagine if it was a Friday night in Philly instead of Brazil? I mean, I get why they're doing it. It's a money thing. You can't tell me anything other than that. But yeah, it's going to be a great night. Win or lose, we're going to see our Eagles for the first time. The real Eagles, not the second, third, fourth stringers. Right. So yeah, I'm excited. And last night, you hit the nail on the head. The youth movement was strong. At least for one night, we saw speed on the field. I have Andrews in one of my other leagues, and I thought I was at least good for 10 points. I mean, I think 4.3. It was ridiculous. He had 2 catches. It was horrible. And Unlikely went completely off.
Yeah.
And almost got the game tying touchdown, except for a toe on the line, which was just crazy. But the game itself was amazing. The like you said, the Zay Flowers was another one that young receivers out there that are just showing out. So tonight, as far as tonight's game, when we're talking about that, we've got AJ been in the league for a while. We got Devontae Smith. Who do we think on the Eagles and the Packers are going to show out? I mean, Packers have some youth at the wide receiver level too.
Pretty much their entire core. Dobbs. Yeah. I mean, who's old on that team? Christian Watson. Jaden Reed.
Yep.
Their entire core. And that's why they had even a good year last year. You start to see it last year. The Nico Collins, the Tank Dells.
Yep.
These guys used to pop up here and there, but it seemed like every team had a good young guy on it.
Yeah.
Niners, you get your Ayukes. These guys, those guys aren't old. Ayuk isn't old, He was in college with Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
At Arizona State before he went to LSU. A little fun fact for you. So
he's the older of the young guys, but because he just got the new contract and everything. But so he's out of that rookie era. But he's right up there with him. Green Bay also has Dontavius Wicks, which can go really well. So and they got a really good tight end. So you got Jordan Love, who's very young. So it's a youth movement this year.
Yeah.
And I think when you looked at the draft and you saw those guys that they're going to do well in fantasy. They're not going to not produce. But I think as a fantasy owner, that's what you really are going to have to look at as far as waiver wire moves and things going forward. Who's the young? I mean, I know in both leagues I put in I'm interested in Likely. Who wouldn't? I mean, and why would I keep that from you? Everybody's going to want Likely. Who? Now, is it a one game thing? Does Andrews, who's coming off the ankle injury, does he play better next team against a better opponent? Chiefs always seem to have his number anyway. So is it maybe, where does that go from here? We'll see.
Yeah, maybe I guess when you don't play teams that have Chris Jones on it with that weak line. Chris Jones was just really disruptive last
Oh,
night. It seemed like he was
unbelievable.
able to do whatever he wanted
Yeah.
with that offensive line. Anywhere they moved him, he got extreme pressure. I mean, Lamar was running for his life, man. Pretty much for that first half. But you know what I thought was weird and a little bit unfair on that first drive to call what 3, maybe even 4 illegal procedure penalties.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit. You know how they say you can call holding on every play.
Hmm.
You know, I believe at some point a message hasn't gotten across through the offseason because the linemen are the smartest guys on the field most of the time. They don't just necessarily just line up wrong. There's something that's been schemed in. That's why they're lining up that way consistently. I was on Harbaugh's side there when I was like, this is a bit excessive. Like something has to stop. Or let this drive go and then come over. Because I've ref myself. I've officiated myself. When I've seen we can call stuff and the ref will go, hey, we're gonna let this go. Maybe they don't know unless it's egregious. And some of those calls really weren't that egregious. They were like really tight. And I'm like 4-1 drive. It just kept stalled. They still scored a touchdown, but
Hmm.
it just stalled the drive all the way through. You can tell they started to get frustrated and second guess and stuff like that. But overall, man, I think their offense is shit. The Ravens, like I said, I don't know if it was just a Chris Jones blimp, but I was like, I don't really know what's going on with this offense, but it looked like they had no identity at all.
Yeah. It's clear that, well, in this game, and Kansas City has a great defense. So we'll see when they go up against teams with a little bit weaker defense. But in this game, what they showed was Derrick Henry is, it again has a lot of wear on the tires. There's not much tread left. And if Lamar doesn't have his legs, if he isn't running the ball like he was last night, I don't think they are even in the game, to be honest with you, because every pass seemed to be either behind the line of scrimmage or just past. They were trying to hit Zay Flowers for a bunch of yak instead of trying to hit people down the field. The only one that was catching balls downfield was Likely. Everybody else was non-existent. Rashad Bateman,
Right.
nothing. I mean, he was going downfield, but he was, Lamar wasn't able to get him the ball. And Andrews, somebody who's normally the guy that's, 15
Right.
yards downfield making catches, didn't do it. So it's going to be interesting to see going forward, if you're a Ravens owner, like I am in my other league, where we go from here. It's one game, so I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. I wouldn't hit sell, sell, sell. But I'm going to have my eye on my Ravens players on the next few weeks to see if, is this really going to work out? Except for, Likely. He's one that you could probably start the next couple of weeks and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that anybody started him in our league. I don't know. I mean, it was like,
Nobody even has him.
oh, well, there you go.
He's on the waiver wire. Nobody even has him. That was one of the first things, when somebody's going off, one of the first things you do
Yeah.
is check who has this person. Is he available? Let me see if he's available. So that's exactly what I did. I jumped on there and I said, but then I'm like, I'm not going to go overboard. So I know last year he had a really good, like 8 catch, 2 touchdown, crazy game when Andrews got hurt. Everybody jumped on him and even as the primary. What you really saw throughout the weeks was like maybe 3 to 4 catches, maybe 40 yards, and maybe a touchdown. One of the biggest differences in our league this year, and you've seen the difference last night, was wide receivers get first downs if they catch the ball for a first down, and running backs. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't like the wide receiver. I think it's redundant in PPR because you already get a point for the catch.
Yeah.
I think it's a little redundant to so next year, no matter what, I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna let it ride for this year because at the end of the day, it's everybody's under the same rules. I don't think nobody would have drafted differently. Like, I'll get a possession receiver, but to the point, because this fantasy, in case you guys don't know, this is about our league. We just kind of commentate our fantasy football league throughout the year, and I think one of the things that's significant, man, is a lot of these quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts. You see Lamar last night; he still can get numbers for you just based off of some of those tweaks to the running back. But I do think a running back rushing for 1 yard and those big backs that don't catch a lot of passes, I think it evens the playing field out for them on a fantasy level, and it opens it up for you to have more players to choose from. You know, you got that guy that you may be on a week, and man, even if he can get you, 40 yards, maybe 4 first downs, or, a little bit here or there, it's a lot better than him getting you that 2 or 3 in previous years where you only depended on the rushing yards. So I just don't like it I think it's just redundancy for PPR league.
Yeah, it was something to try, but then you see it in practice and it may not be the right thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the end, I think that everybody's got good wide receivers. We have a very deep wide receiver year. So yeah, there's a couple of guys that might benefit. The ones that have Ayuk that gets a lot of catches and first downs. So you'll double dip, but we'll see as far as everybody else goes. As far as tonight goes for players tonight, I am really intrigued to see, because you're talking about Jalen Hurts. And we know that, he affects fantasy in a lot of ways with his legs, with his ability to throw downfield, but also to be able to get those tush push first downs and touchdowns, which will take points away from other players on the offense. But what I'm really intrigued to look at tonight on the Eagles is, how does this offensive line do without Jason Kelsey, with Cam Jurgens under center? We've got, and you were talking about that illegal formation. I would guarantee you that Eagles are going to get called for that a couple times, or 4 or 5 or 6, because they always line up in kind of a triangle type formation where you've got the center's head way forward.
Right.
The problem with what I saw last night in Kansas City was, if you watch the Chiefs, they weren't always aligned perfectly, but yet they never seemed to get called for illegal formation. And then there were times where the Ravens got called 3 times in a row, still didn't get perfectly aligned, and the refs just kind of went, all right, forget it. So the Ravens get called for it 3 times. They're still not lining up properly because the refs aren't lining them up. I mean, the refs might as well gone on there and pushed themselves into place to say, this is where I want you. Because the players didn't understand. Harbaugh is going, just let him move up. Just tell us what you want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, again, another thing that the NFL does, is institute some sort of stricter rule, and then they don't clarify it for the teams. So I will guarantee you there are a couple of things I think we're going to see tonight. We're going to see the Eagles get flagged for illegal formation because their offensive linemen do back up off a step from that center. And I guarantee you Lane Johnson will be flagged for a false start because of his kickback that he does a half a second before the snap. A lot of people will say, well, that is a false start. It was never judged a false start by the referees. In fact, they would be the first ones to tell you that his foot going back a half a second before the ball is snapped is perfectly fine, because he's not coming out of his stance. He's just kicking his leg back. Well, the NFL this year said they're going to crack down on that. So I'm interested to see how that affects Lane and how it affects the entire Eagles line at a disadvantage. And how does that affect Saquon Barkley? Because what I want to see tonight, as far as, especially from a fantasy standpoint, is, what is Saquon Barkley? I got him in my other league. What is Saquon Barkley going to do behind a really good offensive line for the Eagles?
Yeah.
And are they going to have a good night tonight on the offensive line?
Speaking of the offensive line, and with that kick, the Chiefs right tackle, I don't remember his name. He does the kick, and he did it a lot last night. They didn't call him once. I noticed that. That was one of the things I noticed. He would get out, and Stanley or Staley for the Ravens, they would both do that kick, and they weren't. It was just that about that alignment. One of the underrated problems the Eagles have had for the past couple years have been stalled drives due to offensive line. It could be the false starts, and they'll come at the most inconvenient time for the Eagles. And you look at this drive and you go, how do we didn't score? And we overlook the line, the line stuff. You get Kelsey out there, have some false starts or some of those dribbles. We'll catch those streaks where we just go, what the hell is going on? Like, last year, like one drive, it'll be at least Mailata got jumpy last year. Lane is always solid. Mailata got a little jumpy and here and there. In the middle has been solid.
Yeah.
But man, I am looking forward to it. I have trust in Jurgensen, the youth.
Yeah.
Rolling with the youth, man. We've seen him. He's had a lot of reps.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be
Played great at guard.
Right. This shouldn't be a deer in the headlights. I expect him to play well. Like I do. Like I expect our whole line to play well.
Right.
But yeah, man, I'm gonna bring up Jalen Hurts because he does. I'm sure he's hot on everybody's list tonight, man. I mean, both Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love finished the league last year second in the league in passing touchdowns behind Dak. So I mean, Jordan Love, even though only half a season, he still balled out. He still had an incredible year. But yeah, man, they got old Jalen Hurts up there. He works in our league because of that tush push, man. He's going to rack up some numbers this
Interesting
year.
that he's 100% rostered, but only started in 96% of leagues. Who are the 4% of people who aren't starting Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. I mean, who else you got?
Especially now, especially in fantasy, and especially maybe it's a rule. Maybe people have different rules.
Could be.
So a league where you may not get a Russian, or it just be based off of rules or something.
Just weird.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I guess you can't. Not everybody can start them, but I just don't see that.
I'm gonna go over our matchups, man.
Right.
We got the Eagles game coming up. I'm gonna try to go over our matchups, man. If we have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat. But hey, man, let's go through here, man. See what we have for the night and get ready for this game, man. Who is playing tonight? Let me take off. All right. Might as well go with my matchup.
Yep, let's do it.
Lord Vader. So yeah, man, I have Josh Allen tonight going up against, this weekend, not tonight, this week, going up against Brock Purdy. I like my odds here, especially with our league with the rushing stats. Josh Allen does a lot of 2 to 3 yard scampers before he gets out of bounds. He'll stick that ball out and scamper out of bounds. Maybe this was a good year. I didn't have Mahomes. I don't know. Mahomes didn't look spectacular last night. They looked good, but he didn't. They didn't look spectacular. I didn't think anybody looked spectacular last night. Really, I think there was some plays here and there. I think a lot of those plays came with rust, like Marlon Humphreys blowing that coverage. Then you have the Worthy play. Just stuff like that. A lot of blown and busted plays. You didn't see like surgery for the most a lot for that game for the most part, man. I think it comes from a little bit of rust, just that week one rust. But anyway, going against Brock Purdy and the Jets. I like the matchup here because they're going up against the Jets. Jets always going to bring it really aggressive.
Definitely.
Like my matchup here. Taylor and Travis Etienne against Pacheco and Montgomery, man. I like my odds here. Like I said, especially again with our format, passing and catching, both of these guys do it well. They could really carry me this year, man. Pacheco could be good for now, but maybe when Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets back, he'll take a little bit off of that. But the rushing first downs really helps him because Patrick Mahomes doesn't do a lot of sneaks. So that does help him. But he got his 18 points last night.
I will say, Pacheco's already showed out, so that's a decent score for him. Montgomery could have a bigger day depending on how well Gibbs does, because Gibbs is gimpy, coming into the season. He is a good to go. He was doubtful for a lot leading up into this week. Yeah. And I think the Lions are still going to have him on a short leash. So that definitely will affect Montgomery. But I do like the Taylor matchup. He's going up against a very stout Houston defense, but he is a horse for the Colts. And I think he's going to have a bounce back season.
Yeah, man. Same thing with ETN. I just got 2 workhorse backs. I think that's what I like more so about the setup, that these guys are going to be the primary guys throughout the whole season. At least you hope. Yeah. But so yeah, man, got Drake London. A lot of people stayed away from Drake London in the draft. I went ahead and took him probably a little bit later than he should have went. I could get lucky here, following it up with DK Metcalf. I'm not high on him. It was just the best available wide receiver. And if he can get going, sometimes he can only need 4 catches to have a really good game. And then I'm going up against Justin Jefferson and Deebo Samuels, man, which is a monster matchup. What you think about that matchup?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see London. I think the reason a lot of people stayed away was because historically he's just not been that go-to wide receiver yet. And I think the reason a lot of fantasy prognosticators are high on him is because of Kirk Cousins being his new quarterback. And I think that will make a definite impact on his numbers. How much of an impact? We won't know until Sunday. And so that's one that I got my eye on. The DK one, always a solid receiver. But again, you got Geno Smith coming back. Not a lot of big numbers. Geno had an off year. He had a great year 2 years ago. Last year was kind of a regression. So they struggled, mightily. And so all of their Seattle receivers kind of suffered as a result. But we'll have to see how it goes this year if new system and if he ends up playing a little bit better. I do think, on the other side, we've talked about this in the draft and everything. you can't not love Justin Jefferson, but I don't love Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold throwing them the ball.
Mm.
I mean, Sam Darnold, wherever he's been, has been mediocre at best. So you're going to get some overthrown balls. You're going to get some behind the receiver balls. And that's going to affect what Justin Jefferson's numbers can be. And it says right there, unlikely to suit up now. In the latest news, I did not
This
hear
was
that.
20 days ago. This
Oh,
probably
okay.
was
Yeah,
he's
so
still projected to get 25.
Yeah, so he's fine.
Yeah.
That just was weird when that came up on maybe
Oh,
it's
absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it's
that'll
20
make
days
your
ago.
eyebrow raise right up. Yeah, 20 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
That's
it's 20
probably
days ago.
Yeah.
But you see
That's,
his player ranking ranked 23rd. I mean 33rd. Like
and that's too, yeah,
that's
with the quarterback.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's top 5 last year coming into the season, no doubt. Do you
Yeah.
think any of these other quarterbacks can come in, Nick Mullins or Brett Ripken? You think any of these other guys could come in and give him a spark on the season?
No. I think that they would have done better with McCarthy. Have watched Michigan last year. He might not have been a superstar, and he might have been. He's definitely was going to be a rookie, but he would have been a lot more accurate than these other guys. Darnold just gives them their best shot, and I'm a little down on him, of course, but it's just because he's never showed anybody really anything other than kind of middle of the road.
Right.
So I think that it'll be interesting with a receiver like Justin Jefferson. Does it make Darnold a better quarterback? Sometimes that works out.
Yeah.
Where you give a mediocre quarterback like Brock Purdy, you give them good receivers and they become a star. I mean, San Francisco fans may hate on that.
Mhm.
I don't think Brock Purdy's worse than Sam Darnold. I don't at all. But Sam Darnold's never had Deebo Samuel and Ayuk and Kittle to throw to, and McCaffrey.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've watched Brock Purdy when one of those players has been injured, like say take McCaffrey out of the lineup and Kittle out of the lineup, he struggles.
Oh yeah. That's when they went on that bad streak.
Yeah. So maybe Darnold becomes a better quarterback from it. I don't know. I think that he may have the better receivers on paper, but you may have the better matchup in that one.
Yeah. New York was a shitty situation. New York has been proven to be a shitty situation for anybody that has been there. So we'll see. But I mean, we can only go off of what he's done. I mean, you can change that just like Goff did. Goff changed everything by playing well last year and almost, going to the Super Bowl. So, before Goff was like, "Hi, get out of here. Yeah, you went to the Super Bowl, but thank you for your service. Go ahead to Detroit. We'll take a guy that we really want." And Matthew Stafford the same way. He was considered a lot of numbers guys, but nobody paid attention. Then in 1 year, changed his entire career going to the Rams. Always had numbers, but not the wins to back it up. Big surprise last night, man. Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm on it, Andrews. It's the same game.
Mm-hmm.
This was crazy. I could not believe. I had bet the over on Kelce with like 40 yards. It was like 40. It was like 64 yards. I'm like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Could not believe it, man.
35 years old now.
Man. And I picked him in the first round last year. And to think I think ever since that Taylor Swift news broke out, he has been downtrending. I had him last year, bro. I was winning back to back weeks and on the high score. Soon as that news came out, and it was, do you think this is disrupting Mahomes and Kelsey's chemistry? Remember, are they not spending enough time around each other? Remember all of that going into Kelce didn't have a good second half of the year. I know it because I was like, oh man, with some nights. Luckily, Joku stepped up. So, but it was the drop off looked a little scary.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's still gonna have a good season, but
I think he will too. I think you got to look at it was the Ravens,
mm-hmm.
and that's a better defense, and the matchup wasn't as good as it could have been. But what was it? Mickey Rocky's manager said, "Women weaken legs."
I mean, Lord.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely is. It had an effect because there's a lot of attention, and he does so much more media now than he was early in his career when he was just focused on playing tight end. Now he's doing podcasts, he's doing Saturday Night Live, and he's following her around to concerts. So it's a little bit different mindset that he has right now. And of course, his career is slowing down. I don't know how much longer he's going to be around, but he is 35. Man. There's a shelf life for all football players. Tight ends maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, the Mark Andrews thing was a mess for me. I have him in my other league, and to see Likely go off like that was really demoralizing. But I hold out. It's one game. Holding out for Mark Andrews. He's 29.
Mm-hmm.
He's still one game, and he was playing against a really tough defense with good linebackers.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes
Look
before I
at this
pull.
here. 28% start.
Yeah, then people might have. Well, who knows?
That's you wouldn't see that again a year ago. You wouldn't even see that. So somebody must have knew that, because if you look at Likely's, I'm gonna click on Likely's. Watch the hype behind it. Even before this, I was looking at it the other night. But like all the news coming into the season was Likely. Great camp from Likely, chemistry building from Likely. And then you saw it last night on top of the reports.
Yep.
They was putting out reports 7 months ago, because before he got popular on the waiver wire, I'm sure they got all the old reports before it populated, and everything you saw was from like 7 months ago, just like that Jefferson pop up.
Yep.
But anyway, and then last night he has that game. I'm not sure, man. 12 targets. I don't think that's a fluke. He's on Lamar's mind.
Yeah.
And which is my problem with Kelsey, because at the end of the day, Kelsey got 3 targets, man.
Yeah.
That's concerning. That means Patrick, I'm sorry, 4 targets. But that means Patrick isn't even looking. You're not even at the top of his mind. He's thinking, I got Worthy, and he loves Rashee Rice.
Yeah. And you wait till Hollywood Brown gets in the lineup. I mean, the thing is, for me, I was talking to somebody today about the Chiefs, and as much as I don't hate the Chiefs, I just don't like them, because I'm not a fan. But I do respect them. And then now they go and win a second Super Bowl with a strong defense, with the lack of weapons. Because ever since Tyreek left, they've been talking about the lack of weapons in Kansas City. And now you've got Rice, Worthy, and Hollywood Brown coming in there with Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco. There's, I think, only in the AFC, there's only one team that can maybe 2 that could stop them. And now that we've seen the Ravens go down, the Ravens would have been 1. But I think Houston, defensively and their offensive weapons, has a shot to maybe stop the Chiefs. And then the Jets. But it all depends on what kind of Aaron Rodgers we get this season, because we know their defense can put up a fight against Kansas City. But what do we get out of the Aaron Rodgers that are in the Jets, as old as he is now? So it's going to be interesting. I am glad that the Chiefs are not in the NFC right now, because they look very, very strong. And all I kept thinking of last night was, I got Hollywood Brown in our league and just waiting for him to come off the DL. But it's like, I would love to have more Chiefs on my team. I mean, seriously, offensively. I mean, Xavier Worthy was a great pickup. I was looking at our draft. Why didn't I take Xavier Worthy? Because he was on my list. He was something I was very high on. And I ended up settling for Hollywood Brown. The reason was because Terry McLaurin was still on the board.
Mm.
And I wanted a number 1 receiver, rather than, I didn't know where Worthy was going to fit in with Rice and Brown once the season got going. Now that I see him in action with Mahomes in a real game, man, I kind of regret going McLaurin. But you regret 100% of the shots you don't take. So that's the problem, is that I didn't even really think about it. McLaurin was still on the board. I'm like, I got to take Terry. Same thing with Rice, is that I forget who I picked before Rice, is that both those guys were on my radar, and I let them slip through for other receivers. And I think I made the mistake of maybe going with the older veterans than we talked about with the younger. And I'll end up probably paying for it this year. We'll see.
What you can run into, the problem that any owner can run into with the Kansas City Chiefs, is they're spread the ball around a lot. So you can be hit or miss. Fantasy isn't really built for spreading the ball around. You need a player that's going to be guaranteed to get you some points, targets, catches, touches, whatever. And when Hollywood Brown comes back, when you start rotating all these guys in, it's only one ball, and you're throwing it to Hollywood, Worthy, Rice, Kelsey, and I think we've seen 2 other tight ends last night catch passes. That ball is being spread around a lot, because every time I thought it was Kelsey, I'm like, no, who was that? Clay? It was, just another random guy.
It makes a complete team, but not necessarily a complete fantasy team. It's a good point.
Right. Right. It's like how the Patriots used to be.
Yeah.
You stayed away from, no matter how good the Patriots offense was as a whole with Brady, you stayed away from it because you didn't know where the ball was going. So not going to beat a
Yep.
dead horse there, man. You want to go over your matchup this week?
Yeah, I've looked at it a couple times, and I think the biggest thing that stands out for me as far as going into this matchup, because I think it's a fairly even matchup. I know that I'm down a little bit in the percentage of likely to win as far as the projected scores,
Mhm.
but I think the biggest thing it comes down to is the quarterback matchup, because we know what we got in Burrow, and we only gotten a taste of Richardson so far. And I waited on getting a quarterback quite a while because I was really wanting Stroud. And as far as I thought, maybe if Stroud slipped to the fourth, I would get him, and then
Mhm.
he snapped up, I think, in the third. But he
Yeah.
snapped up right before I was about to pick him. I was going to pick him in that same round, so I waited on quarterback for another couple rounds and got Richardson. And I'm glad I did because he's one of those quarterbacks that is multifaceted. He's got a strong arm, got great legs. So I'm happy, but I'm still like kind of nervous about what I'm gonna get with him this year. You just don't know until you see a full season of game action.
Right.
So I think that's if I look at everything, because you look at our running backs. I got Brees Hill and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, again, we talked about it earlier. How was he recovering from the slight injury he had? He's in a timeshare with David Montgomery. So yeah, he's off the injury report. He had his little hamstring, but he's good. He was doubtful early. He's back now. But he's still time sharing with David Montgomery, who's a solid back. It's not like David Montgomery's a slouch. It's
Right.
still like maybe a 60-40. So that's tough. I don't know how many times last year I had David Montgomery and was thankful that he was getting all those goal line carries. So I don't know what happens with Gibbs. And then you look at the opponent. He's got his running backs are Kamara and Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams definitely should have another good year. He's going to be the bell cow for the Rams. Kamara is getting there up there in years, but he's still a solid back. And the thing is, in a PPR, he's still solid as far as receptions.
Right.
So he's something that you got to watch out for. I think Gibbs can be too, Kyron, but it's a good solid running back. I think, but there's kind of a push there because I
Mhm.
have Brees Hall. Brees Hall should go off. That's the whole goal behind drafting him first when I had the fifth pick. So he was there. I was going to take the best running back. It was either going to be him or Bijan. I took Brees Hall. I had to struggle with that, but I took Brees over that just for the upside. Receivers, again, very close. I got Ayuk and Diggs. Diggs should have a great season. He's in an offense, though, with Nico and Tank. Could definitely steal, but if we know anything about Diggs, he whines for that football. So that he's going to be talking to Stroud a lot about getting him some
Mhm.
passes. He likes to be the center of attention in an offense. So I think even though Nico is great, I think that's why I took Diggs, because I know that he is a selfish player, not in a bad way. I'm not trying
Mhm.
to put him down, but he's always been whether he was with Minnesota or Buffalo, that's why he's not in those places, because people have moved on from him because of that mentality. But I think as far as fantasy owners, it does us a good service. So he's got Tyreek again. Tyreek is Tyreek. He's going to score some points. Devontae, we'll see how Devontae does. This is where I might have a little bit of an advantage with Minshew throwing the ball to him. Minshew, we know what we got. He was great for the Eagles. He's not a bad quarterback, but again, it's this whole what is the type of offense that Vegas is going to run, and how does that affect Adams? We get to tight ends. Pitts, again, another unknown. I think he was banged up. Check him real quick. I heard that he had
You
a
said
minor
Pitts?
injury. Cal Pitts, yeah. Oh, he's good to go for Sunday, but he did hurt his hamstring in practice. I did hear he was gimpy after practice, so he'll be good to go. But the thing about Kyle Pitts is he's never, like Drake London, he's never shown us anything spectacular. We know people that draft him every single year and he does nothing. But with Kirk Cousins, what does that change? Is he
Right.
going to be a better version of Kyle Pitts, or is he going to be the same one we've seen? I particularly like my tight end and Jake Ferguson. I waited because all the big ones were off the board. Not a Dallas fan, but I watched him a lot last year, and he was solid, dude. Didn't drop anything. He always picked up a lot of first downs. He's that guy. He's not, Andrews or Kelsey in their prime, but he's solid. he's solid enough to where I feel comfortable, taking him and starting him for right now to see how he goes. The only other tight end that I even like better than him would have been Conklin for the Jets at the place where I got them. So the flex, DJ Moore and Nico Collins, I think again it's a push. We'll see how DJ Moore does. You got Oduzier and Samuel and Moore in a great receiving core in Chicago. So who gets the targets? Hoping it's going to be Moore. I mean, again, older receiver, been around a while, but I think that may be good for him. Although, I was watching some of the shows today. It looks like Caleb's really looking at Oduzier a lot. That they kind of have a rapport. So I might have dropped the ball. I might have
I was
dropped the ball.
wondering if that was going to be a thing with them both coming out of college, both playing in the Pac-12 together, seeing each other. Always, we'll see.
So I might have taken the wrong Bears receiver. Again, we talked a good game going into the draft about the youth, and then I my brain picked up guys like Diggs, Moore, McLaurin that have been around because they're proven commodities, and it's harder to take an Aduzier or a Rice or a Worthy over those names, even though we know better in this part, that this is what we do. So all I can do from here on out is keep an eye out on the waiver wire, look at what else I got, and just see where it goes from there. But I think it's a good matchup. I think it'll be fun to watch. The scores go back and forth, but it really, for me, up and down the lineup, it comes down to me, Richardson. How well does Richardson play, against, Burrow? Who comes out with more points? Because I think that could decide it. I really do.
With Karen Williams' injury history, Blake Corum, man, he could bust on the scene.
Well,
the
thing with Blake is watching him with Michigan last year. This kid is dynamic, and he's got great one cut move, and I think he's going to be a big part of the offense. So we'll see. That's all you can do.
Yeah, man. Hey, good luck to you, man. Who you playing, Mel? Too much sauce. That was that used to be Mellow before. I have to break it to. We'll take this one last question that just popped up, because I want to get tucked in. I want to get tucked in for this Eagles game. But I appreciate you stopping by, Chandler Costantino. Chandler Costantino. Start Tua or Purdy? Also start Mostert or Javante. 6-point passing TD PPR league. All right. So you're in a similar league to we are. I'm playing against Purdy this week. So let's take a look at Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy, it is what it is. He has all the weapons. But so does Tua. I'm giving more upside just because with a fresh A-Chan, who has Tua? Let me look it up. Y'all gonna have to excuse me. I'm first year using this one. Let me see. Here we go. Tua slated for 45. And Purdy. Let's see if I can compare them up here. I'm going Tua. I just think Tyreek Hill, week 1, everybody healthy. But I don't think you can really go wrong either way. But if I took a coin flip, I'll take Tua just for the more upside. I think if the game starts, getting crazy, they can always run the ball or start to feed McCaffrey or a bunch of end arounds to Debo and Ayuk. Really telling where the points are going to come from the Niners. They just do whatever they want, and hope that, really dynamic with Shanahan. So, what you think about that one, Lee?
Well, as far as the quarterback situation, it's a close one. I definitely would say that. But in this, you got to look at the matchup too. Miami's at home against Jacksonville. So the matchup's really good for Tua as far as the defense they're facing. Purdy's facing the Jets. We know what they can do. And we know what when you put a little pressure on Purdy, how he reacts. So he's got great weapons, and he's probably going to put up numbers. But I give the slight edge to Tua on that. On the other one, Mostert for me is, I think as long as Achan's healthy, I think Mostert is going to be the number 2, but their shares should be pretty close because you don't want to run Achan into the ground. But I think Mostert is is the second thought. He's the afterthought as long as Achan is in the game. So I really like Javante's matchup this week because they're playing Seattle. Now, granted, they're on the road, but Seattle hasn't shown me anything, defensively going into this year that they don't consider to me be one of the top run defenses. So I like Javante in this game, especially with youth in the quarterback. They're going to lean heavily on the run. So just for me, I would probably take Javante in this situation, considering that Mostert is going to be sharing with Achan.
Right. RB1 over RB2, really.
Yeah, basically.
You have Williams up here, RB1 on his team, and you have RB2 with Mostert. A lot of upside with Mostert. Mostert is normally that guy that you don't know he's going to have a good game. You just read the stats and go, oh shit, Mostert had 2 touchdowns, 80 yards on 3 carries. Damn.
That's the risk. That is definitely the risk is with Mostert if Achan doesn't produce, but he's done that with games where Achan really hasn't been playing. So and again, Achan's one of those guys that we talked about during the draft. He's put on some weight. So, it's one of those things where Achan could stay more healthy, and that will definitely affect Mostert going forward. But I think just for this week, I would go Javante and then play it week to week after that.
I can't really speak on the AFC South. We're Eagles fans. I know you want to talk about the NFC East. I can talk about that. But AFC South, like Titans, Jaguars, Indianapolis,
Texans.
As far as like who you think is going to win that division, I'm probably Houston again.
Yeah.
Just quickly. I think Houston. I think why not? Everything else, a lot of question marks. Can Jacksonville have they have a Super Bowl coach and Doug Peterson and a former player? I think all those things are important. But I'm rolling with Houston until they show me something different. They're pretty loaded.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I like Houston a lot. And only just because offensively, I mean, we didn't even talk about Dalton Schultz too. I mean, they got a solid tight end in going with those receivers. And then you throw Joe Mixon on top of it. Offensively, they look very good on paper. Defensively, they got people coming back from injury that they should be solid on both sides of the ball. They surprised a lot of people last year, could have gone even further. And I think with the experience, I think that they're one of the top teams. But there are other, teams like you talk about Jacksonville coming back. What does that team do? How does Lawrence play? How does Richardson play is going to really make a factor of who that other team is in the South that gives them run for the money. I think that it's not 100% the Texans to win, but there are, other factors that could change things. I like AJ's matchup. I know it's going to be tough, but I think that the thing with the Eagles is one-on-one. If they end up in a one-on-one situation, I think AJ can really, outcatch because he lives for that. He lives to be able to fight for the ball, being able to go for the ball. I think what's going to help the Eagles a lot in this defensive matchup is having Devontae on the other side, and then they've added Jahan Dotson. And then you've got Goddard. So if they have, 3 wide receivers set with Goddard out there, then you got Saquon who can catch out of the backfield. It's going to affect the whole dynamics. The key to all of this is how well Jalen Hurts plays in Kellen Moore's offense. In the new offense, with motion, being able to read defenses better. Because back in, 2 years ago when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and were firing on all cylinders with AJ, what was Jalen doing? He didn't care if AJ was covered. Jalen was just throwing the ball to him. AJ was double covered a lot of times that year, and Jalen was throwing the ball to him. I don't know if he's going to do that a lot this year because he's got so many other weapons and options, or should have, on the field. But I still think he trusts AJ enough to do well. I would start him. You see it right there, 100% roster, 100% started. For me, yeah, definitely starting AJ if you got him. If you keep him on his bench would be
AJ
crazy.
has things you can't teach him. That's what you mentioned, that go get the ball. He wants it more than your player does. And when he did that point to the Steelers, that's somebody that has that dog, and he knows I'm going up against 3 of y'all, and I'm going to get the ball, and it's nothing y'all can do about it. Yeah, man, I have new year, new quarterback. I mean, new coordinators. Year 3, year 3 on coordinators. We'll see. I have high hopes for it, man. I just think they're just used to playing in the. I think Jalen can play in any offense because he's been in like damn near every offense at this point. It's been like 8 offensive coordinators at this point, so he's learned a lot of terminology. I think yeah, fantasy point. I don't see no problems with AJ. I think he's going to have a good year. I think Eagles team as a whole, only thing they need to worry about is what they always need to worry about is that secondary.
Yeah.
Now, if you have an Eagles as your defense on your fantasy team, I would say, they did a lot with the 30th ranked passing defense last year. So, but I think AJ Brown, man, you can never bench him. You can never bench him. Number one receiver and dog, and he's a really close friend to Jalen. So they have that relationship there
Yeah,
too,
sure.
which helps a lot, man.
But defensively, the Eagles are down. Devin White is not going to play, so linebacker is very thin. So again, I'd be looking at Josh Jacobs for it to have a big day because of that. Being able to run the ball, up the middle with Jacobs is going to be big because our linebacking core is suffering. And we also had one of our corners go down too. So it looks like Quinyon Mitchell, the rookie, is going to get a start at the outside because Slay is good, but it's Isaiah Rogers is not going to play. And we've been waiting on him to play because of the gambling suspension. We've been waiting on this guy for a while.
Man.
He was going to be the number 2 QB, and Q was going to be in the slot. But now it looks like Q may move to the outside, and Vic Fangio is already saying that Q is going to get a lot of reps at outside corner. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Let's see how they do on defense. That's the thing I'm most worried about is the defensive side of the ball. Now, we do have CJ back. We got Bradbury moved to safety, which is probably a better spot for him. But I don't like the fact that our first game with White and he's out. But what are you going to do?
Next man up, man.
Yeah, it's all
Next
you can
man
do.
up. I think who's it? Von Braun? Is he or Van
so.
Dion? Something like that. I think
Yeah.
he's starting in his place. He has some reps at least from last year. Look, the Eagles' problem has been for the last 3 years. Their number one problem has been their secondary.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been their secondary. Like anybody would come into Philly and put up whatever they wanted to, any quarterback. And you felt like at times if we didn't score almost, even the Super Bowl season, it was times you felt like if we didn't score every time we touched the ball, the game would be close.
Yeah.
We had a lot of sacks. That's what carried us to the Super Bowl. But that secondary has always been.
I think it's been part scheme, when Gannon was there, and then our scheme last year, and it's been a little bit of a breakdown in positioning and ability. Slay did not play great last year. Bradbury certainly didn't play great, but I think also the scheme let him down. I'm not a big fan of Vic Fangio's scheme, but he is the originator of it, so maybe they play better with the original type of bend but don't break defense. We'll see. I do think, Cooper DeJean coming in and Quinyon Mitchell drafting those two guys are huge steps forward because then they allowed him to keep Bradbury and move him to safety. You got CJ Gardner-Johnson coming back. You've got Slay still there, but now if we get Rodgers too, I think we'll have one of the best secondaries in football. But what scheme are they playing in, and how well will they play within that scheme?
Right.
Once we get Devin White back, but we still have a lack of depth at linebacker. So we'll see tonight how they play. I think if I had some Green Bay receivers, I would definitely start Watson for sure, because we don't know what that scheme is going to be like. And Jordan Love really plays well in that drop zone scheme, so he could have a big game as well. So I would look out for that. So I think both sides, if you've got Packers or Eagles going in tonight, I would say you can start your top players on each team and feel very safe, because I think it could be a high scoring affair. That's a good question. It's a possibility. Are people overreacting to the Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely? We talked about that earlier in the show, and I have Mark Andrews in another league. It's definitely alarming, but I think that Kansas City, the defense, has always been able to keep Andrews in check, like I said earlier. And Likely, the thing that you brought up, Tubby, is that the 12 targets. That would be concerning to me, because definitely Lamar was looking his way. And we also mentioned that all of the passes that were beyond the line of scrimmage seemed to go to Likely. Couple went to Bateman. Flowers, so much were like within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. And Andrews got 2 catches. So I wouldn't push the panic button just yet. But I'd have my eye on Andrews, and I would have a short lease, and I'd be looking at the waiver wire. You can get Likely if this trend keeps up. But yeah, I wouldn't jump the gun too quickly because Andrews is still Andrews, and he should still put up numbers. But that was concerning. That's the only thing I'll say about
It's
that.
like just like on one hand, it scares you because, well, it concerns you because it's not like Andrews was hurt. Like he was out and Likely, and you just go, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He was on the field week 1. Now, the only grace, only optimism, if you have Andrews, that I may give you here is that he is coming off an injury overall. And maybe because they have Likely, they don't have to bring him back as fast and get him into game shape. But 12 targets. I mean, Lamar was looking for Likely in the biggest moments. When his back was against the wall, that's who he looked for. I don't think you can overlook that. That's called chemistry right there, and that's part of it. So yeah, man. I wouldn't give up on Andrews, but I would be paying attention. By week 4, if it's still like this, then yeah, Likely is obviously a TE1 there. Now you may have to do some adjustments.
I would watch the waiver wire just this week in the next couple weeks. See if you can get yourself a bargain tight end. Try to see as much of the games as you can. See what the tight ends are doing, just in case if you don't have a good backup. Just in case, I'd still run with Andrews for a while.
Right. Well, the Birds are about to play, so 20 minutes or so.
Hell yeah.
Week 1, and we'll come back for a recap here. Next Tuesday? We normally do on Tuesday. That's right. I'm starting to get fresh again too. I'm like, what do we come back? Tuesday. Yeah. Do the recap on Tuesday. Get you ready for that waiver wire on Wednesday. Good luck to everybody. Nobody knows anything until these scores go up, until week 1 has been played. And then that's when everybody becomes the real genius. We're all just hoping and guessing. But solid start for a lot of folks. And you got anything before we get out of here, Greg?
No, go Birds. That's about it. Let's go.
Go Birds, man.
Season going.
Yeah, man. Thanks everybody for stopping by the Fantasy Waiver Wire. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. You can, even if we're not on, if you have a question that you heard during this live, let us know. We'll see it and respond to it. And with that, man, we are out of here.
Take it easy.
Let me hit this.